welcome to Friday Message, coming to you from the chancel area of our beautiful, newly restored sanctuary. If you hear some banging and sawing going on in the background, it's because we're having a new ramp installed. Going out to the memorial garden, there was more damage to the existing ramp than we first realized after the storm, and thanks to a generous donor, we have the funds to be able to replace that ramp and have a brand new and shiny one. So that's what you're hearing going on in the background. Love, love, love. Our scripture readings this coming Sunday and really throughout the whole season of Easter have been all about love. We've had these marvelous readings from the Acts of the Apostles. The first readings on the weekend are from the Acts of the Apostles. And this happens in the season of Easter. We go from having an Old Testament reading to a reading from this second volume of the Gospel of Luke called the Book of Acts, or the Book of the Acts of the Apostles. These are the stories of those first followers of Jesus, those early disciples after he rose from the dead and ascended into heaven. How they lived their lives, how they spread the good news, those stories of those first followers. And it's stories of how they went about healing, like Peter healing the crippled man who had to be carried to the city gate to beg every day. Stories of the baptizing of the Ethiopian eunuch, this person who was an outsider amongst outsiders. How Philip sat with him in the carriage and then said, "Here's some water, we'll baptize you," and how that early Christian community, those first followers, shared what they had, shared so that none would have too little and none would have too much, and how they reached out and welcomed all, how they welcomed even the Gentiles. That's this Sunday's reading from Acts, that even the Gentiles were welcomed into the company of believers, into the fellowship, into the way of following Jesus. It's called the Acts of the Apostles. It's not called the thoughts of the apostles or the feelings of the apostles. It's what they did. It's how they put love into action. Love, love, love. We've had these marvelous readings also from the first letter of John. The first letter of John is beautiful. God is love, and those who abide in love abide in God, and God abides in them. God is love. God is love. And then our gospel for this Sunday, from Jesus' farewell discourse in the Gospel of John, the speech, the testimony that he gave right before he was being prepared to be put on trial and executed. He gives this long testimony to his disciples. And he says, "This is my commandment. Love one another as I have loved you." That's one of Jesus's final thoughts before his departure from this world, before the end of his earthly life. He says, "Love one another as I have loved you." And it's not a suggestion or something to consider when we have time or when we feel up to it. It's a command. It's a commandment to love. Love, love, love. I love our presiding bishop, smiling Michael Curry. This is I think this is the first book that I replaced after the storm. All my books that got waterlogged and hauled away, I've been replacing them slowly over time, replacing the ones that are really important to me and that I'm going to want to have at arm's reach to be able to look at again. And this is the first one. Love is the way. Michael Curry says, holding on to hope in troubling times. If you've ever heard Michael Curry preach, whether at the royal wedding or whether at some grand cathedral somewhere or around a campfire to a bunch of 7th graders, he has only one sermon. And if he were sitting here, he'd smile and laugh and admit it. One sermon. It's just all about love. It's all about love. God is love. So if we're talking about God, we're talking about love. And you know, the wonderful thing that I've discovered with Bishop Curry, I probably heard him either in person or online over the last 10 years that he's been our presiding bishop, probably close to 100 times. I see that he's somewhere. Everything's recorded now. It's wonderful. You can go in and listen to his sermon. And it, you know, it's the same sermon over and over again, but I can't get enough. I can't get enough. I keep smiling and nodding my head. He quotes "There's a Balm in Gilead" in 2/3 of his sermons, and I can't hear it enough because I feel like I'm being washed in living waters. I feel like I'm thirsty and drinking out of a big jug. Every time I hear him, I can't get enough of it. I just want to be immersed in this message of love. But it's important for us to know as we hear these messages of love, as I preach about love, as you are hopefully sort of immersed in it. It's important to know that we're talking about agape love. We're talking about love in community. We're not talking about romantic love. We're not talking about familial love, as wonderful and as important and as much of an experience of God as those things can be. When we talk about Christian love, we're talking about agape love, which is the love that we have for each other in community. The love that we share when we gather around the table and break the bread and share the cup. The love that we bring out into the world and share with every person that we meet. Agape love. And it isn't the same as romantic love. It isn't about those warm, fuzzy feelings all the time. It isn't about familial love, those kind of bonds that connect us. As wonderful and as important as they are, it's different than that. And it's powerful in its own way because it is different. It isn't always easy, and it isn't always convenient, this agape love. Bishop Craig Loya, the Bishop of Minnesota, puts out wonderful little reflections each week. And he shares one that talks a little bit about agape love this week. And I want to read this for you because this is really good. Bishop Craig says, "Whenever I fly, I engage the spiritual discipline of preparing myself to be maximally inconvenienced. Flights often involve delays. People are anxious, in a hurry, and often rude and inconsiderate. If you approach a trip expecting everything to go smoothly, you will inevitably be frustrated and miserable. If you set out expecting that larger and smaller challenges will simply be part of it, you'll be in a much better spiritual space to deal with it." Flying. Life in community is like that too. Love is the very heart of God. To be made in God's image is to be made by love and for love. But in a fallen world, love is unbelievably difficult to practice. Human communities are messy. Human relationships are complicated. If we approach our families, our jobs, and our churches expecting things to go smoothly and as planned, for people to be on their best behavior at all times, we are in for a life of frustration, to be sure. 3 guideposts I try to live by as a way of choosing love in the midst of life's inevitable conflict are, number one, assume good intentions and repair damage when you can. I've seen a lot of conflict in my life. I have hurt others and been hurt by others. And I have almost never met anyone who is trying to cause harm. Relationships go better when we spot one another the grace of assuming good intentions and when we are quick to repair damage when we have caused it. Number two, speak to one another, not about one another. Love means caring for each other enough to tell each other the truth and to be direct. Number three, hold others to rules 1 and 2. Part of how we choose the way of love collectively is to invite one another to assume good intentions, repair damage when possible, and speak directly to each other. Following Jesus means expecting that conflict and disagreement are part of the deal. Love can only heal when we let its light shine on the real wounds we carry together. Ultimately, we aren't the physicians. That's God's work. Our job is to get out of God's way as best as we can so our messy, broken, often fumbling efforts can help form us more perfectly in the image of God's world-saving love. Agape love. Love in community. Our job is to get out of God's way as best as we can so our messy, broken, often fumbling efforts can help form us more perfectly in the image of God's world-saving love. Love, love, love. It's all about love, but it's sometimes messy and often difficult. Just a couple of announcements. I invite you to check out the summer scene at St. Michael's for Wednesday events that are coming up in June, July, and August. There's a flyer in the Friday brief and on the website. Mark your calendars now for a variety of events that are going to be happening on Wednesdays throughout the summer in June, July, and August. And finally, just a reminder that we switched to one Sunday service at 9:30 beginning on May 19th. So coming up, 2 weeks from this Sunday, we're going from the 8 and 10:30 to 9:30 on Sunday morning. That begins on May 19th. Be safe and well, and God bless you.